The gavel cracked like a gunshot in the stale air of Courtroom 3B, and Judge Harlan Whitaker's laugh followed, sharp, metallic, the kind that slices through hope. "Mrs. Delgado," he said, leaning forward on the bench, his silk tie catching the fluorescent light, "you're telling me you can't pay a $42,000 judgment because you're, what? Baking cookies for the homeless." Another chuckle rippled through the gallery, mostly lawyers in tailored suits who'd never known a day without a safety net. Maria Delgado stood alone at the plaintiff's table, her worn cardigan frayed at the cuffs, clutching a manila folder that held every receipt from the last 3 years. Her voice, when it came, was soft but steady. "I'm telling you, Your Honor, that the money went to the people who had nothing left after the flood. I have the names. I have the thank you notes." The judge waved a manicured hand. "Notes don't pay debts, ma'am. Judgment for the plaintiff. Case closed." He didn't even look at her as he signed the order. Maria's knees buckled, but she caught herself on the table's edge. The bailiff started toward her, polite but firm. She gathered her folder, the paper edges soft from too many readings, and walked out past the marble columns of the county courthouse into the late October wind. The sky over Elmwood, Ohio, was the color of tarnished nickel, and the first flakes of snow drifted like ash. She had 48 hours to vacate the little Victorian house where she'd raised 3 kids and buried 1 husband. The bank had already taped the foreclosure notice to the door. She didn't cry until she reached the shelter on MLK Boulevard, the one she'd helped turn from a condemned church into a refuge after the river swallowed half the east side. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and bleach. Volunteers stirred vats of chili, cots lined the old sanctuary where stained glass saints still watched over the lost. Maria set her folder on the folding table that served as her desk and finally let the tears come. Not for the house, she could live in her ancient Civic if she had to, but for the people who depended on her. The shelter's pantry was down to 3 cans of beans and a bag of rice. The furnace coughed like a dying man. And now the judge had laughed. Word travels fast in a town where everyone knows everyone else's business. By nightfall, the story had reached the Roadhounds Motorcycle Club, a weathered brick clubhouse on the edge of the rail yard. The hounds weren't saints, they'd done time, carried scars, and still rode Harleys that growled like thunderstorms. But they'd also lost brothers to the flood, and Maria Delgado had buried 2 of them with full honors when the VA turned its back. She'd stood in the cemetery in her apron, mud on her boots, reading psalms over open graves while the rain soaked her to the bone. Big Mike, the president, was polishing chrome when the call came. 6'4", beard like steel wool, voice that could rattle windows. "She's gettin' evicted," the caller said. Mike set the rag down slow. Judge laughed at her. A pause. "Yeah, we ride at dawn." The next morning, Maria woke on a cot in the shelter's back room, her neck stiff, the folder still clutched to her chest like a child. She shuffled to the kitchen to start coffee. Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving the world muffled and white. She heard the rumble first, a low, seismic growl that made the windows vibrate. Then another. And another. She stepped onto the loading dock, steam from her mug curling into the cold. They came down the street in formation, 30 bikes, maybe more, chrome flashing under the weak sun. Leather vests, patched and faded. American flags snapping from sissy bars. The lead rider cut his engine in front of her, boots crunching salt. Big Mike. He removed his helmet, revealing eyes the color of storm clouds. "Mornin', Miss Maria." She blinked. "Michael Ruiz. You'll catch your death without a scarf." He grinned, the kind that started slow and ended up cracking his whole face. "Heard you got a problem with a judge." Behind him, the others dismounted. Some she knew, Rico, who'd lost a leg in Fallujah and now rode a trike. Lena, the only woman in the club, tattoos climbing her arms like ivy. Tommy 2 times, who'd done 5 years for a bar fight gone wrong. They formed a loose semicircle, breath fogging the air. Maria's heart thudded. "I don't want trouble," she said. "I just want to keep the doors open." Big Mike reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a thick envelope. "Trouble's already here. This ain't charity. It's payback." He pressed the envelope into her hands. Inside, cash, crisp hundreds, rolled tight with rubber bands. More money than she'd seen in a year. "We passed the boot at every chapter from here to Pittsburgh. Told him what you did for our boys. Told him about the judge." Maria's fingers trembled. "I can't." "You will," Lena said, stepping forward. Or we'll sit on your doorstep till you do. But the money was only the beginning. At 9 a.m., the courthouse doors opened. Maria walked in alone, the envelope in her coat pocket, her chin high. The same bailiff nodded her through security. Courtroom 3B was already in session, small claims, traffic tickets, the mundane machinery of justice. Judge Whitaker looked up from his docket, irritation flickering across his face. Mrs. Delgado, this is not your scheduled appearance. I know, Your Honor. She placed the envelope on the clerk's desk. I'm here to satisfy the judgment in full. Cash. The judge's eyebrows shot up. The gallery murmured. He recovered quickly. Approach the bench. Maria did. The clerk counted the bills under the judge's watchful eye. $42,112, exact to the penny, including interest. Whitaker's jaw worked soundlessly. Where did you get this? Does it matter? She asked. It's legal tender. He leaned back, studying her. For the first time, he seemed to see the lines around her eyes, the calluses on her hands. No, he said finally. It doesn't. He banged the gavel. Judgment satisfied. Case dismissed. Maria turned to leave. The doors at the back swung open. The hounds filed in, silent as a honor guard. 30 leather vests filling the aisle. Big Mike led, helmet tucked under one arm. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The judge's face went the color of old parchment. The bailiff's hand hovered near his radio. Whitaker cleared his throat. This is a courtroom, not a parade, Big Mike finished. We know. Just wanted to make sure Mrs. Delgado got home safe. He nodded to Maria. Ma'am. She smiled, small and fierce. Thank you, Michael. The judge watched them file out, boots echoing on the marble. When the doors closed, he looked at the empty envelope, then at Maria. Mrs. Delgado, I may have been hasty. She met his gaze. We all have bad days, Your Honor. But the story didn't end with the money. That afternoon, the hounds returned to the shelter, not to intimidate, but to work. They hauled in pallets of canned goods, cases of diapers, blankets still in plastic. Lena organized the pantry with military precision. Rico fixed the furnace with parts scavenged from a junkyard Harley. Tommy 2 times rewired the flickering lights so the kids could do homework without shadows dancing on the walls. By dusk, the shelter smelled of pine cleaner and possibility. Maria stood on the loading dock again, watching the bikes rumble away into the twilight. Snow had started again, soft and deliberate. Big Mike paused at the curb. You need anything else, you call. I will, she said. But first, I'm baking cookies. Chocolate chip. You still like the ones with walnuts? He laughed, the sound rolling across the empty street. Yes, ma'am. Extra walnuts. 3 weeks later, the Victorian house still stood, foreclosure reversed by a cashier's check and a judge who'd suddenly discovered the meaning of pro bono. Maria hosted Thanksgiving in the shelter's new dining hall. Long tables borrowed from the VFW, paper turkeys drawn by children who now had beds. The hounds came in shifts, trading leather for aprons, carving turkeys with Bowie knives. Judge Whitaker arrived last, coat unbuttoned, carrying a covered dish. My wife's green bean casserole, he mumbled. She insisted. Maria took the dish, her eyes bright. There's room at the table, Harlan. He hesitated, then sat between Rico and a teenage girl who'd lost her mother to the flood. Conversation started slow, weather, football, but warmed like the room itself. Whitaker listened more than he spoke. When the girl asked if judges ever made mistakes, he looked at his plate. Every damn day, he said. But some days, you get a chance to fix them. Later, when the dishes were done and the kids asleep on cots, Maria found the judge on the front steps, staring at the Christmas lights the hounds had strung along the eaves. I laughed at you, he said without turning. I thought you were quaint. A relic. I was wrong. She sat beside him, breath fogging. We're all relics until someone needs us. He nodded. I'm retiring the gavel next year. Taking over pro bono cases for the shelter. Paperwork's a bitch, but, he shrugged. Maria smiled. Welcome to the club. Spring came early that year. The river stayed in its banks. The shelter expanded into the empty lot next door, funded by a grant Whitaker helped write in a poker run that raised $20,000 in one weekend. Maria's cookies became legend, shipped to deployed troops, sold at farmers' markets, the recipe printed on cards tucked into every care package. One Saturday in May, the hounds threw a party in the courthouse parking lot. Bikes gleamed under strings of bulbs. A local band played Skinnerd. Kids chased each other through the grass. Judge Whittaker arrived on a borrowed Harley, helmet too big, grinning like a teenager. Maria handed him a cookie. "Extra walnuts," she said. He took a bite, closed his eyes. "Perfect." Big Mike raised a bottle of root beer. Club went dry after Tommy's third DUI. To Maria Delgado, he bellowed. "Who taught a bunch of knuckleheads what family means?" The crowd cheered. Maria looked around, at the faces, scarred and smooth, young and old, black and white and every shade between. She thought of her husband's grave, the floodwaters, the laugh that had cracked like ice. None of it had broken her. It had only made room. She raised her own bottle. "To second chances," she said. "And to the people crazy enough to give them." The sun dipped behind the courthouse, painting the sky the color of forgiveness. Somewhere inside, the gavel rested in its box, gathering dust. Outside, engines roared to life, carrying the sound of hope down every road that led away from despair. And in the heart of Elmwood, Ohio, a poor widow's house stood tall, its windows glowing, its doors wide open, proof that kindness isn't a transaction, it's a revolution, one cookie, one ride, one changed heart at a time.